the bracelet you had on the poster?
Yes, that's right, Connie,
What
it is.
That looks strangely like a bracelet or a necklace or something serpentine.
It's actually Gracie's necklace that you're looking at right there.
Okay.
Yes.
Where's her charm?
Where's her charm? Hey, we don't have a charm, but we are here with Connie Moody right here. She has been smitten by Gracie here today. Would that be fair to say?
That would be very fair to say.
And we've also found out that the Moody household has 3 dogs in their household, and one has total control and probably doesn't weigh more than a pound, or
No, she weighs 4 pounds.
4 pounds.
4 pounds of love.
And there's other details that we could share, but we won't right now because she is here to talk about elections, voting. She said, and we could just do a show about dogs. That would be more interesting. Well, maybe, but there's a lot going on the election end, isn't there?
I wouldn't say that would be more interesting. It would be more fun.
More fun. But I tell you what, you do have a lot going on with the elections. One of the big news is that we here in Greenwood are not joining the suit, which I'm not sure I exactly understand what's going on about paying for the primaries and everything. So I wanted you to come on and explain to us a little bit what's going on with the primaries. We've moved the primary up to the 21st. That's got to create a little more work here, doesn't it, in advance, having to get ready for it?
Not really.
No?
It does not create any more work than it would have at the original date.
Well, does that mean you'll be working the first of the year, though, rather than taking a few days off?
Yes, but that's fine. That's what we do. Kids do it. So,
all right.
the type of job you do what you are needed to do.
That's true about a lot of jobs, isn't it? We have so much to do, and it just kind of shifts around. But I think it should be an interesting dynamic with all the primaries being pushed up the way they are. I mean, comes the first of the year, it's just like bam, 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 right down the line here.
It's going to be very busy, that's for sure. And South Carolina will be the first in the South to have their primary.
We had to work hard to keep that role, though, didn't we?
We had to work very hard to keep it, and that's been going on since 1980.
1980. All right. Well, how about what is actually happening now? We didn't join the suit, but what exactly is the suit that's out there? I just saw in the paper today that they are actually going to go ahead with trying to hear it, I guess, the first part of November.
Right. There are 4 counties that have joined the suit. Greenwood was not one of those counties. The suit was filed primarily because there was some question as to whether the State Election Commission had the authority to conduct the election.
Well, is this new, or is this something we've had a problem with in the past?
This is very new. Normally, under Section 711-20, the county parties conduct presidential preference primaries.
Okay. And the state party has taken this over?
In 2008, there was legislation introduced for the State Election Commission to conduct the presidential preference primaries.
Why did they change it?
To see how it would run, if it would run smoother.
Now, was it run that way in 2008?
Yes.
It was run that way in 2008 when we had all the primaries. So, did some of these counties not get paid?
I really can't speak to that. I can speak to Greenwood County.
Right.
We submitted all of the proper documentation, and we were fully reimbursed for the documentation that we presented.
Okay, now so y'all got paid, but what is it? Greenville County, Greenville, Spartanburg, Chester, and Beaufort have filed this case. So it says that the suit alleges the commission can't require counties to cover expenses for the primary, but do they have to cover the expenses, or do they get reimbursed for it?
I'm making an assumption here.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that they may have been shorted, because it's the only thing that I can figure out,
right?
A lot of counties pay their poll workers a supplement over and above what the State Election Commission will reimburse.
Okay.
If they did pay a supplement, they would not have been reimbursed for it. There are some expenses that are not reimbursable. Those are made very clear by the State Election Commission, so if these counties chose to expend the money for those items, then they knew clearly up front they would not be reimbursed for them.
So then what's the reason for the suit?
The reason for the suit is the legislation that was enacted in 2008 was written specifically for the 2008 presidential preference primaries.
Okay.
Okay. It arose again this past session, and the governor would not support it because she did not feel that taxpayer money should be used to fund a presidential preference primary.
Okay.
So the law failed, or it did not go any further. It died. So the State Election Commission got a ruling from the Attorney General.
Mm-hmm.
The Attorney General has ruled that the legislation does allow for them to conduct the presidential preference primary for this season as well, for the 2012 election season.
So they're being forced to do what they did in 2008.
Correct.
And this is where the problem is.
Well, they have also reassured us that we would be paid for reimbursable expenses.
And I'm sure you already have a list of what the expenses will be, or you'll be getting one.
Oh, we have a list of what is reimbursable, and nothing has changed from the 2008 election season.
All right. Now, how much money do they have on hand to be able to pay for this?
$680,000 at this moment in time. The rest of the money would come from the state Republican Party. They have assured us that they can raise the funding. And there is also filing fees for the candidates. If they had filed prior to May the 3rd, the filing fee was $25,000. After that, the filing fee was $35,000.
So all of these candidates that are going to be filing to Rutten will have to pay $35,000, and I guess that goes to cover expenses in running the election?
That is correct.
So at this moment, we have 5 or 6 candidates that are, let's see, one had, Palenti had actually filed and paid his, hadn't he? And he was asking for his money back?
Well, I can't speak to that, and I'm not really sure. I do know, according to this, which is current as of 3-4 weeks ago, there were 7 candidates.
Right. So that's 200 and some, almost $300,000 there.
Correct.
Yeah. So there is more money coming in. Now, how much does it cost statewide to run something like this?
A lot.
A lot.
I think it's pretty pricey because if you consider the cost of the poll workers and the cost of paper ballots, which by law have to be in every precinct in case of emergency, it gets pretty pricey. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that the cost to run the presidential preference primaries in 2008 was a little over $2 million. But
That was
bear
just
in
for the
mind,
state.
there were 2 primaries.
Right.
not
Democratic
just one.
and a Republican.
Correct.
Okay. So we're going to have, most likely, we're just going to have one, the Republican.
Most likely, I did ask that question from the State Election Commission, and I was told that they had been told by the Democratic Party verbally that they did not think there would be a presidential preference primary, but they still have until November the 1st to decide.
Now, do the candidates have to pay their $35,000 by the 1st of November?
Well, and as far as the $25,000 or $35,000, depending upon when they file, the Democratic Party can set their own filing fee.
Oh, okay.
And they may come up and say $10,000, $15,000. That is something that's set by the party.
Okay. All right. Well, so far, I don't think we've actually seen any challengers in the Democratic Party, have we?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Not me either. And we're looking out there. All right. Hey, we are here with Connie Moody. She is the Executive Director of Voter Registration right here in Greenwood. We're going to hear a word from our sponsors. When we come back, we're going to be talking about more and setting you straight on whether there's an election coming up right here in Greenwood. So don't you go away. If you've got a question, don't hesitate to call 229-7984. That's 229-7984. All right, but we are talking about voter, what's going to happen with the primary coming up January 21st. A lot of suit that's been filed for counties, and I understand that that actually is supposed to be coming up to go through the court system, correct?
That is correct.
So I guess they would be hopeful to resolve this because January 21st is not very far away.
Well, it's not far at all.
And now, just to play devil's advocate, what would happen if the counties, if they said, okay, guess what, you don't have to have your primary there in those counties? What would happen?
The primaries would still happen.
Oh,
They
the
would
primaries
still
would
occur.
still, okay.
Yes, or the primary.
The primary, yes.
Okay, which is scheduled for January 21st. Worst case scenario is the county party would conduct the primary, but there will be primaries.
Okay, so
Across the
regardless. Now, what is that? What is the difference then, Connie, versus the state running it versus the county running it?
Expense.
Expense?
Mm-hmm.
Can counties do it cheaper?
If the county party conducted their primary, which I have assisted the parties over quite a few seasons in conducting their primaries, they recruit the poll workers. We do the training for the poll workers. We do whatever the party asks us to do to assist in conducting the primary. The poll workers do it on a voluntary basis.
Okay.
Whereas when the State Election Commission is involved, the poll workers are paid to do so.
The poll workers are paid to do so.
Correct.
Okay. So basically, it's not going to change whether there's a primary or not. It's just how it's going to be paid for.
And how it will be conducted. That's correct.
How it will be conducted.
Yes.
All right. So we don't have to worry about not having primaries in those counties. All right. Well, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I don't really foresee that happening. There is a ruling from the Attorney General as to whether the Supreme Court upholds that or not. That will be the determining factor.
Okay. All right. Well, we have just talked about what's going to happen with that. It's good to have the source of information right here with us today. This is Connie Moody. Gracie is making a conversation that she usually doesn't do over there. Okay. Somebody please come get Gracie. All right. Gracie, what is the conversation about over here? Hey,
Gracie has spotted something that she's interested in.
Okay, all right. Well, it's a man in uniform. There you go. It's a man in uniform out there. Man in uniform and Gracie just don't get along.
She was alerting us.
Yes, okay. All right, so what else is going on here today? What is going on in the election coming up this November? You know, we got the election barbecue going on. I think everybody says, oh my God, there has to be some election going on. What's going on?
And there is an election going on, but it's in the town of 96 only.
Okay.
And it is their municipal election, which they always have in November of odd-numbered years.
Okay,
So that is the only election going on November the 8th in Greenwood County.
but you can still get barbecue from Rotary.
You can still get barbecue from Rotary, and people ride by, they see the Rotary with the barbecue, election day barbecue banners, and they go to their precincts to vote, and there's no one there.
Right.
So then they call the office wanting to know why their precinct's not open.
So this is a good service for you to be on here today.
It's an excellent service. Excellent to the voters, save you a little time from driving to the polls, save you a little gas. There is no elections in Greenwood County other than the town of 96 on November the 8th.
No referendums, no nothing here.
No, nothing. Now, if you live in the town of 96, you do have an election, and that is only for the voters that reside within the town of 96.
Okay. And I think that what they have a mayor and some county councilors.
Mayor, Wards 4 and Ward 6.
Okay. So there are some elections going on as far as that goes, but as far as Greenwood, there are not. You do need to get out, though, and give Rotary your business for the barbecue because they work very hard for that. But there is no election going on the 8th. Is it the 8th?
On the 8th of November, and I'm sure, as Ann said, that they would really appreciate the business.
That's right. So they'll be out there having a good time. You get out there and actually just look forward to the fact that coming up in January, you better get out there and vote. Now, primaries, how are those as far as turnout for votes?
They're normally very good. The Republican Party is having their primary on Saturday.
Oh, okay.
January the 21st is a Saturday. A lot of the other offices across the counties have been complaining about the election being held on a Saturday, which does tend to make the participation higher because people are more flexible to go to the polls and vote.
Sure.
When we had the last presidential preference primaries, they were both on Saturdays.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this is an opportunity that everybody needs to put on their calendar. Now, what if somebody wants to vote early? You know, that's always comes up as a question.
We do not have early voting in South Carolina. We have absentee voting.
Okay, absentee.
Early voting is no excuse voting. Absentee voting, you have to have a reason. If someone wants to vote absentee, all they have to do is call the office at 942-8585. We will mail an application. As soon as the ballot is ready, it will be mailed to the voter.
Okay. All right. So, but they probably, when will those actually be coming out, Connie? When would when?
Usually about 6 weeks before the election.
So
6 to 8 weeks.
sometime in December,
Right.
they'll be coming out.
Maybe mid to late November.
Mid to late November. All right, so you can absentee vote, but there is no early voting.
No, there's no early voting.
Now, what about this voter ID? I mean, have you had requests for people saying I need to be able to get an ID, or it's been a problem?
We've had a lot of questions from voters about the voter ID, and I want to make a point of saying that this is not a law yet. It has to be pre-cleared by the U.S. Department of Justice. They have not done so.
It's not a law?
No, it is not a law, and it will not be a law until it does have pre-clearance.
When is that supposed to be? Is there a suit on that?
No, there's not a suit on that.
Okay.
Normally, it's 60 days. They ask you to allow 14 days for check-in, so around 75 days. They have requested additional information. Once they do that, then it starts the clock back again at the 60-day. So there's a chance that it may not even be pre-cleared by the time we have the presidential primary.
Okay.
And there's a chance it may not be pre-cleared at all.
If it was passed, what would that mean for primary? I mean, so you're saying probably it cannot be passed in time for the primaries to begin with?
Well, I don't want to say that because it has been sent to the U.S. Department of Justice. So there's a chance it can be pre-cleared. There's a chance it may not be pre-cleared. It's a toss-up.
It's a toss-up.
Yeah.
Okay, but people, I find it hard to believe that people don't have IDs. I mean, it seems like we have to have an ID for everything. You can't hardly go anywhere without an ID.
Well, see, and you and I think that way because we're out and about all the time. You've got a lot of citizens that are not, that really just don't have the need for photo ID.
You were talking about people that were in nursing homes.
Yeah, for instance, people that are in assisted living facilities, why would they necessarily need a photo ID? Because they don't really have a lot of business to conduct.
Sure.
So, now the DMV has offered to issue photo IDs at no charge once this has been pre-cleared. Eventually, down the line, when we issue voter registration cards, we will put a picture on the voter registration cards. That will be upcoming when money is available, and that's a very broad subject too. Considering the state of the economy, when will money be available?
Sure.
I have no idea, and we've had a lot of people coming in wanting to get a voter registration card with a photo ID. First of all, it has not been pre-cleared. Second of all, we're not set up to do so because we do not have the equipment because the funding is not there at this moment in time.
Well, okay, so it really, even though it's kind of been presented like it's a done deal, it's not a done deal. That's
It
what
is
you're
not a
telling
done
me.
deal, no.
Okay.
I have an op editorial coming out in the Index Journal shortly in the next few weeks. Did that intentionally because we have had so many questions and it has caused a lot of confusion.
Sure. Well, I know Governor Nikki Haley back, September 28th, I think, was doing pickups with taking people
That
to
is
get
correct.
IDs. And so I think a lot of people were under the assumption that it's passed here in the state.
It has passed the House and the Senate here in the state, but it still has to have pre-clearance from the U.S. Department of Justice.
Yes. So that's what we got going on here. Gracie, I don't know. Do you need a photo ID? She must need a photo ID. That's what she's jumping up and down for. She must want to vote in this upcoming election. Hey, you stay right here with us. Gracie will be quiet for the last half of the interview. It is time for South Carolina news and a word from our sponsors. Don't you go away. We're right back here at Sharp Facets Gallery. Hey, the price of gold is up today. Just to let you know, let's go ahead and check out the price. Last time I checked, I think it was up in the 1680s. Am I correct, or what has it done? But you know, the place that plays the most is right here at Sharp Facets Gallery. So when you want to get the most price, hey, $1,683 right now. So gold is up there, folks. Come see us today. Take advantage of the high price while you can, because you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. That's the bottom line. So if you've got gold, if you've got diamonds, don't forget, we're paying for the jewelry idea of it. We're not just buying gold. So come see us today at Sharp Facets Gallery, right here on the 72 bypass. Got a question for us? Well, give us a call, 229-6613. That's 229-6613. We were just talking about the voter ID, and I actually thought that this had been passed, and we just found out from Connie, no, it hasn't. So that means, can somebody still vote without a picture ID?
Yes.
So if the primary comes up and they haven't resolved this from the, now this is being resolved by the state, the Justice Department?
U.S. Department of Justice, they have to pre-clear it.
Pre-clear it.
Yes.
If this is not resolved by them, then you wouldn't need it. And if they, I guess they could say it's unconstitutional. Is that what the issue is about it?
There's several issues going on at play with the voter ID. When folks go to vote, 90% of the time, they bring their driver's license.
Sure.
So for the voters that do present a driver's license, it's a moot point.
Okay.
It's for the 10% that don't.
Okay.
Once they come in, all that has a voter registration card, they have nothing with a picture on it. They have expanded the IDs that can be used. You can use a South Carolina voter registration card that has a photo on it, which no one has, because none of the officers are set up to do so.
Okay.
You can use a military ID that has a photo. You can use a passport. Not everyone has a passport.
That's true.
You can use the DMV ID card, which looks just like a driver's license, but it is not. The DMV has said that they would provide these at no charge to the voters.
Okay.
Or you can use, obviously, your driver's license.
But at this point, if you show up with a voter ID card that does not have a picture on it, you could vote.
Yes, at this point.
At this point.
Until this does obtain pre-clearance, if it obtains pre-clearance.
Okay.
And again, that's a 50-50.
Now, are there any other states that have a voter ID? Do you know?
To be honest, Dan, I think there are a few. I don't think every state does, and which states those are, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Every state is totally different, and they're constantly enacting new laws or abolishing laws, so it's kind of hard to keep
Yeah,
up
they are
with.
kind of enacting laws all the time, I
Yeah,
think.
quite frequently.
So, now what about as far as running the primary, though? Are there any things that have changed in that? Will the polls be open like all day, starting at 8:30 or 7?
No, the polls open at 7 a.m. and they close at 7 p.m., just like they do during any normal election. They have asked for cost-saving measures, which is inclusive of consolidation of precincts. We try not to do that in Greenwood County, and at this point in time, I really have no intention of doing so unless we're forced to. But I like to open every precinct that the voters normally go to cast their ballot.
Okay.
It
So
eliminates a lot of confusion.
So if you normally go to place X, Y, or Z, that's normal. That is where you're going to go when the...
Yes, unless something changes. And if something changes, we will give the voters plenty of notice.
Now, what about as far as the redistricting? Will that affect? That doesn't affect where people vote, does it?
No. That has nothing to do with precinct lines. That only affects election districts.
Okay.
For instance, if you currently live on Elm Street and your county councilman is in seat 1,
Mm-hmm.
then your county councilman may change to 5.
Okay.
Okay. And that is just based on equality, one person, one vote, proportional districts.
Now, what about the time that you need to be making sure that your voter ID or your registration is current? And if you haven't registered, when do you need to register by in order to be set up to go for the primary and then all the elections after that?
30 days prior to any election in the state of South Carolina.
So that's really like December 20th?
December 21st.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So it is coming up. If you have moved, now what about if somebody's moved? Let's go through some of those things.
Okay, if someone has moved, if they have moved into Greenwood from another county in South Carolina, they need to re-register.
Okay.
Okay, if they have moved within Greenwood County, they need to notify us so that we can change their voter registration card.
Now, I mean, can you do that with a telephone call, or do you
No,
need...
and that
Of
would
course
be too
not.
simple.
Yeah.
Well, the reason
Right.
for that is if hypothetically you were angry with someone and want to get back at them and you call the office and, hey, I'm so-and-so and I want to change this card, we don't allow that. We need a signature from the voter, and it is to protect the voter. We can do this via fax.
Mm-hmm.
We can mail the form. You can come to the office and do so. We make it as simple as possible. So if you've got access to a fax, a scanner, just let us know and we can get the paperwork to you. But we do have to have a signature of the voter to do so.
You know, one of the things, if somebody is not, sometimes people drop off the rolls even though they're still registered voters, correct?
The reason they drop off the rolls is inactive failure to vote. If someone has not voted in 2 general election cycles, then the State Election Commission will mark them IF, which is failure to vote. If they still do not vote in the next election cycle, they will take them off the rolls. Now that is supposedly how it works. We've got voters on the rolls that have not voted in 20 years.
And if they walk through the door, they could still vote?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes?
Yeah. We have a database of all of the voters in Greenwood County that have been taken off the rolls for whatever reason other than deceased. If someone comes in to vote, they're not on the rolls. If we can go into our database and find their old registration number, we can reinstate them and let them vote.
You know, the one thing that I have been very impressed here in Greenwood, and I can't speak for the rest of the state, is how hard you work to make sure that if somebody was on the rolls, that they're able to vote again.
It's because every vote counts. We've seen so many elections that are so close. And I know people laugh and they'll say all the time, my vote does not count. That is far from true. But we have had some very close elections, within 3 votes, within 2 votes. It makes a huge difference. So the way that we look at it, we do take this very seriously. A lot of times voters may not vote in a 10-year period because there's not been a candidate that really excited them. And all of a sudden they're excited and they want to go out and vote. They should be allowed to do so. So anything that we can do to reinstate a voter, we will do so.
Well, I think that's very commendable because, you know, it's like you said, the rules actually say they can drop off the rolls. But here in Greenwood, you keep them on the rolls, basically.
Well, we don't keep them on the rolls. They're taken off by the State Election Commission.
Okay.
We do keep a database that has every person that has ever been registered to vote in Greenwood County. So if we can go back through and find the original registration date and the voter registration number, we can reinstate and let them vote. And the vote will count. Yes.
And that will be done right there at the precinct?
No, it cannot be done at the precinct because they do not have access to that database. It's a huge database, obviously. So that is something that would have to be done in the office.
So if somebody hasn't voted in 10 years or 2 or 3 election cycles, they should contact you and say, this year I'm going to vote?
Well, they can contact us and let us look and make sure that they do not need to be reinstated, that they're still on the rolls. If they go to the precinct to vote and they're not on the election books, they do have provisional challenge ballots. They can let them cast a ballot and challenge it and let us research it before certification.
Okay. All right. So that's what happens. They actually get to, do they have to do a paper ballot or do they
would have to do a paper ballot, yes.
And then with that paper ballot,
then we would research it. That's what we do for 2 days prior to certification is we go through all paper ballots and determine if they are valid voters, not valid voters, registered in Greenwood, not registered in Greenwood, so on and so forth, and we present that to the Election Commission.
So that's why you can't just say at the end of the night with all this electronic voting, boom, we've got the answer who won.
Right. That is why.
Wow.
They're uncertified results.
Uncertified. All right. Well, we are here at Sharp Facets Gallery. We are talking to Connie Moody. Hey, do you have a question for Connie? Have you got a question about whether you can vote or not? Maybe she can tell you what things to be thinking about. But if you've got a question, give us a call, 229-7984, 229-7984. Oh, that's right. We are back here at Sharp Facets Gallery. We are talking to Connie Moody. Yes, she is in charge of all the elections, the voting, getting you registered. She is the person that is in charge. You know, Connie, I think you run a great office there. Your people are always on it. They're very helpful, and you know, voting is such an important part of our life. I think a lot of people maybe don't take it as serious or get involved with it as they should. But as we're looking at these next elections, have you seen any uptick maybe in people registering to vote or young people getting involved in voting? What's happening out there?
It's a little too early. That usually gets a little crazy a couple of months out from an election. So it's still a little early.
What do you think for the Republican primary in January? Do you think there's going to be a lot of turnout for that, or what's the
I think
feeling?
we'll have a very good turnout.
Very good turnout?
Yes.
Well, I certainly hope so because, everybody is complaining, and, the only way to really make your voice heard is to vote, right?
That is correct.
So if you need to register to vote, you need to go ahead and to vote. Now, to register to vote, you do have to go to your office.
No, you
No?
don't.
Okay.
You can come to the office.
Okay.
You can get the form online at www.greenwoodsc.gov.
Okay.
Fill it out, fax it in, mail it in. There's several ways. You can call us. We'll mail you an application. Applications are available at the library. You can go to DMV and register. You can go to DSS and register. There's a lot of avenues to register to vote. Yes.
All right. If people have questions, what's that number to call, Connie?
942-8585.
942-8585. So if you have a question about your voter registration, whether you're registered, whether if you've moved, there are so many aspects of this. And the one thing you don't want to miss out on is that opportunity to vote. Now, you said December 21st will be the deadline to be able to vote in the Republican primary.
That is correct.
Okay. And when's the next? Then is the next election in November, or will there be some other elections coming up in between?
You will have several elections coming up. You will have the District 51 and 52 school board election in May.
Okay.
You will have the primaries in June. We always have a runoff from those primaries in June.
Right.
And then you'll have the general election in November.
In November.
And the general election in November will encompass quite a few elections. It will be the general election, the District 50 school board election, the election for the city of Greenwood, which this will be the first time that election has been on our general ballot, town of Troy, town of Hodges.
So there'll be a lot going on.
Yes,
there'll
be
a lot.
6 elections going on at one time.
Okay. Well, let's see. We just had a call from Dan Richardson. He said Connie is the best director of election in the entire state. God, Connie, what a compliment.
Dan, you are super. Oh, Dan is such a good guy.
He is. He
has been a friend for many years.
But, the thing about Dan Richardson is he is passionate.
Oh, he has more passion than any individual I've ever known. He is such a good man.
Absolutely. And, of course, if you're concerned about what's happening in our country, if you're concerned about what's happening in our state, this is your opportunity to get involved. So even though we don't have an election coming up on November 8th, except in '96, okay, the first election that will be coming up will be the Republican primary, January 21st.
Correct. And just a case in point, with the economy as it is, I know there are a lot of folks out of work. We'll be needing poll workers.
Oh, okay, a job.
A job.
Yeah.
When you work the polls, you get paid $120. $60 for training, $60 for the day of the election. So if anyone is interested in working the polls, you need to be a registered voter in Greenwood County or an adjoining county. If you'll call the office at 942-8585, we'll get you set up to work the polls.
Now, is it all paid, or are some of them volunteers?
It's all paid.
All paid.
And we can also use 16 and 17-year-olds
For
to work the polls,
jobs.
and they get paid also.
And for this one, it'll be on a Saturday, so it won't conflict with a lot.
That is correct. It will not conflict with school, and it will not conflict with a lot of people's jobs.
That's right. It's just a question whether it'll conflict with football or will we have college basketball.
They can watch it on their iPhone, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. Well, it certainly is a great way to see what goes on in the election process, to be involved that way. So if you would like a job, did they need to call you down there?
Yes. If they'll give us a call, we can mail the paperwork.
Okay. Is there an application online, or?
There's not. It's just a simple form that we have them fill out to get the information to put on record.
Okay. But the thing about it is, you do have to be a registered voter.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's not a one-time shot, because we'll have elections all through the year. So it's an opportunity to make $120 per election.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And is that for all day, from 7 to 7, or
That
do
is
you
correct.
work a shift? Okay.
7 to 7.
Okay. So a 12-hour day, $120. That's $10 an hour.
And that does include the training class.
And it does include the training class. Well, you know, if you're going to do a job, you got to know how to do it, right?
That's exactly right.
That's right. So if you'd like to apply for that job, just give them a call down there, 942-8585. That's 942-8585. But you do have to be a registered voter. So that's a pretty small as far as something you should do anyways, right?
That is correct.
All right.
And you had asked about redistricting earlier. We have received notice that the Department of Justice, U.S. Department of Justice, has pre-cleared the lines for the House of Representatives, which is House 12, 13, and 14 in Greenwood County. We'll be in the process of moving the voters affected by that in the next few weeks. We have not received clearance yet on the Greenwood County Council.
Okay.
We should hear from that in the next few weeks. The Senate, which also will affect Greenwood County, that's the state Senate. We do not have pre-clearance on that one.
Okay.
So as soon as we do, we will let the voters know, and we'll make these changes prior to elections for 2012.
Wow. So there are some state representatives that their district has changed. The Senate has changed, correct? And the county council has
County council, yes,
has
it will
changed
be
too.
changing as well.
Okay.
And some of your municipalities, the city of Greenwood may look at redistricting.
Okay.
Greenwood District 50 may look at redistricting. Any entity that does not run at large can look at redistricting.
Well, you know, that has to all do with the census, right? That's
That is
what
correct.
is the census has made the difference on that.
Now, the census spurs that based on the numbers. That's what shows you that your districts are not proportional.
Mm-hmm. So this has already been done. I know one person that I've talked to, Mike Pitts, his district is changing very much in Greenwood.
It changed a lot.
Yeah.
He lost a lot of Greenwood. He at one point had Ware Shoals,
Right.
and now he does not. That's going to House 13. He had the town of 96. He will not have that any longer. That will go to House Seat 13, which is currently held by Gene Fenson. So there's a good many changes.
Yes, I mean, that's just one that I knew that had made a big change
Yeah.
here in our area. So these are the things that you're looking at. These are the things you're facing. The biggest thing I can say is make sure you are registered to vote. If you haven't voted in a time frame in the last 10 years, check with Connie and see about getting yourself reactive.
Reinstated.
Reinstated. Hey, there you go.
That's a big word.
Reinstated as a voter. It's real important. You know how you feel about the economy, the people, all the stuff we're going through. Give yourself the opportunity to participate. As you said, Connie, some races have come down to 2 or 3 votes.
And that is very true.
So if you think you don't make a difference, you do make a difference. You make a big difference. Get out there, get registered. And don't forget, the law on a voter ID has not actually been, what was the word?
It has not been pre-cleared.
Pre-cleared.
So it is actually not a law
So
until it is pre-cleared.
So if you want to get registered, you actually don't have to have that photo ID. If you don't have a photo ID at this moment, you don't have to worry about it. Correct?
And that is for voting, not for
voting.
registering to vote.
Okay.
Yes.
For
When you
voting.
register to vote, you do need to provide an ID for proof of residency.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have all these things going on. Get registered, get it done, be ready to go, get involved. That's what I say, and I tell you what, looks like it's going to be a very busy year right here on WLMA because, you know, we've already been in contact with some of the candidates. They're coming through here, all the presidential ones. We're already getting requests to come on the show, so you just got to stay tuned right here on your favorite radio station, WLMA, right here in Greenwood. Connie, it's been so nice of you to take time out of your schedule and come on and talk about it. It's not very often we actually have the time to sit down. Usually it's a quick telephone call.
And you are so welcome, and anytime you let me know, I'll be glad to come back. If anyone has questions, you're welcome to call me at the office or call into the office and talk to anyone.
That's right. That's 942-8585.
And just one other thing, if I may inject
Just wait a minute.
quickly.
1 second. This is WLMA right here in Greenwood. Now, continue.
Okay. If someone is 17 years old and they will be 18 years old prior to November the 6th, which is the date of the general election, they can register to
2012.
vote. That is correct.
Okay, not
As
this
of
year.
January the 1st, 2012, they can register to vote in the June primaries and in the general election.
So if they'll be
18 years old prior to November the 6th.
Okay, for 2012.
For 2012.
That's right.
Yes.
So, and they can vote in the primaries?
That is correct, the June primaries.
Wow, how about that?
It's always been that way. A lot of people are not aware of it. But the primaries are the selection process for the candidates for the November election, the general election.
Well, that's great to know. So we can get a lot more voters out there. So these 17-year-olds could go ahead and get registered.
That is correct.
So they can vote.
And they can also work the polls and make $120.
Woohoo! All right. I guess you need some people to work the polls, huh, Connie?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. That's great. Hey, this is WLMA right here in Greenwood. That's going to do it for us. Connie, thanks for coming out today.
And thank you for the invitation.
All righty. Bye-bye, everybody.